Hi, welcome back. It is part 2 of my campaign update and the state of my campaign, but maybe it's time to move to the State of the Union because these things affect everyone in the Union. And these are the canvassing requests by different organizations. They're trying to fish to see how you're going to vote, what's important to you, and to make sure that you're still in their belief system. So I joined the League of Women Voters because I thought it was a good organization and I wanted to see what they were up to. First off, they seem to be very pro registering to vote. And so I'm going to address that right now. Actually, the government has no business knowing what, and certainly the town has no business, or so the county has no business knowing what political party I'm in. It's like telling you what religion I'm in. It's all of that is private, and we have the right to privacy. So what you, as a government official, has the right to know is, am I living in that county? Is that my one and only residence in the whole United States and even in the whole world? Those things you can know. So, am I living in your county? That should be your priority. Everyone who moves into your county needs to fill out a form and become officially registered in your county. Not to vote, but to register as living in your county. You, county people, need to know who is living in your county, period. You are slacking off if you don't know how many U.S. citizens you have and how many foreigners you have and how many illegals you have. You are slacking off, so you're failing currently already. Shame on you. So, start a list. Who is living in my county? Have everyone give them a 2-month period of time. They have to come in and say, I am living in your county. I am using this as my one and only address for Social Security and for the IRS. That's what you need to know. That's the only thing you need to know. Well, actually, there's one more thing. You need to know if I am a citizen of the United States or if I'm a citizen of another country. And I'm trying to become a citizen of the United States, or I have approval to be living where I'm living in the United States. So I could be here working as a scientist, or I could be here going to school as a foreigner. Or I could be here married and working on becoming a U.S. citizen. And so there are many categories for why a foreign person might be living in a county, and then why they should be living in a certain section of the county. So it doesn't mean that you're illegal. It means that you're legal. And so by doing this, all legal people, this is what we need to do. It's a national emergency. So you have 2 months until end of May to come in and sign up at your county clerk's office stating, I am living in this county. This is my official one main residence according to the Social Security Department and the IRS. This is where I live all the time. This is my location. This is where I choose to be. I have other houses in other states, but this is where I am official. That's how it works. So you get to vote where you're official. And then you also say, I am a U.S. citizen, and you show the necessary documents to prove all this, and then it's official. You're in their book as being a U.S. citizen and a resident of that county. Now, if you move, you should change your one main address as soon as possible. And if you don't, then you'll be voting in your previous address. And maybe that makes sense. Maybe, you want to have an effect on an election that you're not going to be living in the jurisdiction of eventually. That could be. I don't know why you would, but the concept is that as soon as you move, you want to go in and you want to tell the new town, hey, I'm living here. And the town should give you also a little packet of goodies with information, a little welcome package that says, welcome to the county, and specifically in your area of the county, these things are going on. And you get a list of people to contact so that it's like a community. It's friendly and you feel welcome. That's how it works. So, yeah. And then if you happen to be a foreigner, like let's say you're a student at the university and you're renting at this apartment, you still need to go in and you need to tell the town. And then the town tells the post office so that you can start receiving mail delivered there. Now, there will be another category for people who do have those homes in other areas, but I'm going to assume that you want your mail anyways delivered where you're living, or at least to a P.O. box, right? So that can all be arranged there, but the then county clerk will tell the post office that you are officially living at that address and that mail should be delivered there for you. It should not be just random things the way it is right now. It's so clearly on purpose chaotic. And there's what I also want to say is it doesn't mean that we have to be mean about it. We don't have to point fingers and say, blah, blah, and we don't have to send off police. No, it's not that. There is a way to be stern and firm, but also kind. And this is what I don't see at all in the USA. There is, we have been taken over by a whole military concept, and just everybody is like very rude and bossy, but in I want to say like a military way. So it's time to chill a little and find the best in others. Because if you constantly go around looking for misbehavior, you might find it. But if you treat people with respect, you'll be given respect back. And when I say respect, that means being kind and friendly. It doesn't mean being overly friendly either. It just means being normal. Giving facts, doing your job without a lot of complications. So, you register in your county that you are living where you're living. Then the county records that, and you are a U.S. citizen, so you go into the U.S. citizen category. Now, every county should have on their homepage how many U.S. citizens are living in their county and how many non-U.S. citizens are living in their county. Then on that same page, they should say how many births happened in the county, so we really know month by month how many new people we have and how many people died. We don't need to know the details. We just need to know a number. If there's like 10,000 U.S. citizens and 5,000 non-U.S. citizens, the public needs to know that. And if we've got 100 babies being born and 100 people die, we need to know that. But also if it's lopsided, if we've got, I don't know, 2 babies being born and 100 people dying, that can also be information. So it's time that the county works with the public, and stop using these phony extra terms, and you don't have permission to sell anybody's information about who they're registered to, whether it's Democrat or Republican. You actually have no business knowing that, period. It's none of your business. My business is being a Democrat or Republican at home. My business is being a Catholic or an atheist at home. It has nothing to do with you, and you have to stop it. So now you have a list of U.S. citizens. And you have a list of where they're living. So you know who gets to vote. All U.S. citizens get to vote. All U.S. citizens who are 18 or over get to vote. You don't have to special sign them up because they're signed up. When they reach their 18th birthday, they're eligible. And if the next election happens after their 18th birthday, they're eligible for that election to vote. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. We do need to raise our children, especially from 17 to 18. They need to learn their rights and about the Constitution. I'd like them to go to Washington to meet the president and get involved with government immediately, because government is your life. So we should all be involved. But the real point is that when you want people to vote, you give them ballots. And instead of standing at the ballot polling area, we're going to stop that in my platform. We're going to get ballots at home. We fill them out and bring them back to the county clerk. We show our IDs. We sign the book that we've voted. And then we drop our ballots into the ballot box. There's no more going to multiple areas. Everybody has a way to get to the county clerk's office. It's an important government office that everyone will need at different times in their lives. So there has to be ways for people with cars and without cars to get there. There's no excuse. People should have a month to vote, to decide, to read over the information and make an educated decision at home, fill out the paperwork, and then you have a month to walk in the door and drop it off. You don't get to mail it in. We're not there. But everyone in the county who is 18 or over gets to vote, gets the opportunity to vote, gets the information that's needed to make the decision to vote on all topics, and then votes, hopefully. So currently, the amount of people voting is very low, my understanding. And I know you Democrats and Republicans don't want everybody to vote because you would have to deal with the results. And that's not my problem. That's your job as a political person working. You have to deal with the things that the people choose, because our Constitution of the United States, and we are U.S. citizens, begins with we the people. It doesn't begin with we, the small group of Democrats and Republicans that are living in each county. No, it doesn't say that. It says we the people. And then in the Constitution, it is defined that the people who get to vote are 18 years of age or older. And it shouldn't matter anything else. Age is the only defining moment in the Constitution that says who gets to vote. It is, when we say we the people of the United States, it's not saying we the people of the world get to come in and do whatever we want. It doesn't mean that either. It means we the people of the United States. And maybe when we go to vote, maybe that's what everyone who goes to vote also has to say. They have to say the beginning part of the Constitution. I, a people of the United States of America. And then we can really recheck that everybody knows what their rights are. They're recommitting to the country, and they're placing their vote. Maybe that is something that could be done to make sure that the citizen is also a real citizen. But Yeah, I wanted to go over the League of Women Voters canvassing that they're doing, or the survey, voter opinion survey. But maybe I will. This will be a long one. Yeah, I'm going to keep going. Okay, so that is, my government, I don't want you to know if I'm a Democrat or Republican. It's none of your business. No, none of your business. And while we're on the topic, having places all over the state and maybe all over the country who are taking driver's licenses and they're swiping them, this is a violation of my privacy. So we need to stop that. Sheetz, Kroger, Walmart, you need to stop that. That's a violation of my privacy. No more scanning my driver's license. No. I don't know what comes up, but you have no business doing that. You can look at the ID, see the date, and it's done. I am 60 years old. This ruling came out for teenagers who were drinking underage. It wasn't meant to be for 80-year-olds. This is absurd, and it's got to stop. So, so the League of Women Voters of the United States sent me this year to get my opinion. And they tell me I got to get back in 10 days. But I'm not doing that because, you don't give your information to the riggers, to the cheaters. And I hate to say this because, I really wanted the League of Women Voters to be the good guys, but they're so hung up on registering to vote that it's clear that they have some sort of skin in the game. And that's not who I am. So, the first question is, do you plan to vote in the 2026 midterm elections? That's none of your business. I mean, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm planning on voting. And probably every U.S. citizen would vote if we knew what we had to vote on and if the voting wasn't rigged. But you don't really want us to vote. By that question, you're finding out that there's a chance I'm not voting, and then you could use a fake party card because you know whether I'm a Democrat or Republican. And in a lot of the states, you just have to show your party card and you can vote. That's considered ID currently. No. So, how will you vote? Choose one answer only: by mail, in person, early in person, or ballot drop box. And again, it's none of the League of Women Voters. They don't need to know that. So I would not mark it. I would not tell them. Because they can stop things, or if they think that you're going to be late, they can send somebody to be you and go in and vote. So, no. And I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but trust me, there's a lot at stake in these elections, and there's a lot of ways that people are cheating. And it might not be the organization itself. It could just be some of the people in it. So I don't mean to blame the whole organization, but truthfully, that's none of your business anyways. Then, have you or anyone you know ever experienced intimidation or attempts to influence your voting experience? But yeah, I mean, we all get phone calls and emails and texts and ads and flyers and all sorts of things. But then, when I went to vote last time in West Virginia, here in my district, they intimidated me. First, they didn't want to let me vote because I wasn't registered. That was the first issue. But the point of having a provisional ballot is exactly for people who are not registered. So why do you have a provisional ballot then? So, yeah, the Republican man didn't want me to vote. A Democratic woman helped me to the machine once I got through the start process. But then when I handed my document back, I have no idea what they did with it. So, anyway, there's lots of intimidation going on at the polling sites. And I will let you know that, because that is important to know. And I'm not only letting you know, I'm letting the public know. So, yes, there's absolutely. But now that we know that this canvassing after the election by the county commission is going on, it doesn't even matter about my intimidation. It's about their intimidation and how much profit they've making from the decisions they get to choose. So, I am just so overwhelmed and disappointed in the amount of corruption in our government currently in the USA. This is just so not my USA. It's not. I don't know when it got so bad and when it got so popular to be bad like this, but it is just horrible. Have you faced any of the challenges below while voting? Intimidation or harassment at the polls? Yes. Not being allowed to vote due to registration or ID problems? Almost. I mean, had I really listened to the guy, the first sentence he said, I would not have voted. But because I know my rights, I fought it, and I finally could. It took me about 5 to 10 minutes to convince them that they should let me vote. So, yes, absolutely. Have you faced challenges while voting? So, issues with mail-in and absentee voting? Yes. So, when I was living in Switzerland, there were 2 times where I didn't vote. And when I started running for president, I asked my county clerk, my election division, where I was living in New York State at the time, and they said I voted in every election while I was living in Switzerland, which, like I said, I know I didn't, because 2 times I still had my ballot in my hand. I didn't get it in the mail in time, so it went into the garbage. So she either has recorded the information wrong or somebody voted for me. And I'm going to say somebody voted for me. Yes. And I mean, even if you do vote from abroad, your vote doesn't really get counted. Somebody votes for you anyways. And the reason I say that is because when I was first in Switzerland, you did like a hole punch, and then you had to send that in, and then it would be read by a computer, I guess. Then they started this new one. They sent an email once and said, do you want to vote online? I was like, oh, yes, wonderful. So then you go to this area to vote online, and you click, and they send you an email, or they give you a PDF somehow. I can't remember how it happened, but I got a PDF that then I had to print out. And then it's a PDF of the ballot, right? And of like a envelope looking thing that you eventually have to tape together and build on your own to make a envelope for your ballot. I mean, New York State? Don't you have... I just... And this was not 1 year. This was a couple of years going in a row. And I was dumbfounded that this was considered voting online or something like that. Oh. So, yes, issues with mail-in or absentee voting, absolutely. Long lines at the polling place, no, that I didn't experience. But okay, yes, I did when I was voting in New York back in 2020. I also had long lines there, but they moved it along. But sadly, I got in, and I was voting on people who I didn't really know, and then I was also voting on issues about New York that I wasn't even informed that I had to vote on. So to get rid of the long lines, again, if you vote at home, you do it all at home in peace and quiet. You can use your phone. You can investigate, and all the things you're voting on. And then you fill out your paperwork, and then you go in. Then there's no long line. You go in, you show your ID, you sign the book, you put your ballots into the box, and you leave. It's a 5-minute process then. So currently, we have states who are switching their voting systems too. So, they have these new machines. And the machines have different software, and each state is different. But I think what they're doing is, like one state will use it for a while, then they'll send those machines to the next state, and then new machines come in. So then part of the voting process is just learning how to use the product. When we all know how to write, we know how to use a pen, and we know how to use a piece of paper. Why do I have to learn how to use a computer just to vote? It is just insanity. And we all know that in there is software that's doing all sorts of crazy things. So, just stop the insanity. Somebody, please, it's just enough. The fraud and manipulation, it's just overwhelming. It's a state of emergency in the U.S. It's a state of emergency. We are not a functioning country anymore. We are a military state trying to control people who are trying to be citizens of a country they remember from decades ago. Which is the biggest problem threatening democracy? Now, they say choose one, but yeah. So mis and disinformation, that's 100%. It's hard to know what's real and what's fake anymore. And again, even with voting, we don't get told what we have to vote on, and then we walk in the door. I just explained it happened to me in New York, but it also happened to me in West Virginia. You walk in the door and you got to vote on new levies and stuff, and nobody ever told you about them. So, I'm sorry. We pay taxes for what? For misinformation? For not doing your job? For manipulating votes? It's just... So, legislation that limits the ability to vote. Well, I don't think that that's the biggest issue about threatening our democracy. I think it's the desire for power and control that is so encompassing that good people, will do bad things. That's what's ruining our democracy. Lack of trust in the voting process, which is the biggest problem threatening democracy. No, lack of trust in the voting process is not at all the problem. It's absolutely true. So we should not trust our voting process currently because it's rigged. Erosion of the checks and balances in government. No, I think we've been seeing for the last year during Donald Trump's presidency that the checks and balances are working fine, although Congress could be doing more perhaps. But on the other hand, maybe they don't need to be doing more. Maybe we don't need Congress. So, we're not really hearing a lot from the House, and so maybe we don't really need the House. And that's my suggestion. We don't need it. We need senators. 2 from each state, 1 man and 1 woman. Because right now, women's voices are still not being heard, and we've got men making decisions about us that they should not be making because they have no idea. Then we have the biggest problem threatening the U.S. democracy is corruption. And that's why it took top priority. Once I realized, after the 2020 election, I realized how much corruption was in our election process and in our country. And I decided, I never knew I should do something. I always knew there was corruption and wrongdoing, but I didn't think it was that bad, or I didn't think it was my problem. But then I realized, no, wait, it is my problem, and it is that bad, and we got to do something. And that's why I'm here, folks. So then another problem threatening the democracy is the lack of transparency. But again, Donald Trump has been fairly transparent in his presidencies, and so it's working. So we're seeing he's changing things and for the better. So I am good with what's going on there. So now the next question is, in your opinion, what is the best way to limit the impact of special interest money on the political process? What is the best way to limit the impact of special interest money on the political process? Well, we need to limit what these special groups can give to a candidate, and we also need to limit how many outside, PACs can be allowed for any one candidate. There should be the candidate. I mean, I don't know why we even allow PACs, truthfully. The candidates' political account should be the only one. We don't need other people collecting money. I don't need other people collecting money for me and then running ads for me. I don't need that. I hold my voice, and I hold what people know and hear from me about me. So, political PACs need to go away. And there should be restrictions on how much money, well, there already are on how much money an individual can give, but there should also be a limit on how much money corporations can give, or lobbies, or any interest group can give to any one candidate. And what we could consider is that the candidates that are with a party get some extra party money. The parties can arrange TV shows or whatever, radio shows, if the candidate can't do it themselves with their own donations that they've had. That is perfectly, I think, acceptable. So that would be two sort of areas where money comes in and then can be used. And then people could give lots of money to political parties. But there should also be a limit to that too. There should be a limit to the amount of donations to a political party from individuals and from corporations and lobbies and everything else. So, and this also includes gifts, and this includes, giving vehicles and vacations and all of this. This has to stop. It has to stop. I know it's not, nobody's liking what I'm saying, but it's got to stop. So, public financing of congressional elections, lower limits on the amount individuals can donate to candidates, better disclosure requirements for all political contributions, and then other. And I wrote exactly what I just said. So I think for individuals, I think we have a perfect amount, the maximum that people can donate. I don't know if there's limits on parties, what they can take in, but there should be limits on that. And, well, I just think we need to change the whole process around because there's just too much money flowing in. And then we've got so we've got the Republicans who are constantly sending and I don't know about the Democrats, but constantly sending data. And that eats up your phone's data usage. And that fills up these data storage facilities that we're now building. So do you know how much of those buildings are going to be filled with Republican propaganda? And so we need to put a limit on the amount of Republican propaganda, well, in everybody's propaganda, because that's we have to build these buildings because of them. So we need to cut the Republicans off from advertising. I mean, the Democrats and Republicans need to be removed actually from office because they have destroyed our country. And this is unacceptable. Period. That's what I have to say. They've stolen our country and they're not giving it back, folks. And Supreme Court has my lawsuit. They know what they need to do. It's time. Which of the following is the biggest threat to voting? New voter ID laws. Well, I don't think that's a threat. We need all citizens, as I described earlier, need to show an ID when they vote. They need to come in when they first move into town with something that proves that they've moved into town, and they need to know who they are and whether they're a U.S. citizen or not. So these are the things you have to prove when you move into town. Now, once you're in the books as being a citizen, unless you were somehow removed from being a citizen, which could be, the town or the city or the county would get a notice from the government stating they are no longer a U.S. citizen. So for the most part, once you become a U.S. citizen, you will most likely stay one. So once that's done, then you can just come in with your local driver's license or your citizen card, or I think what needs to happen is Social Security we all have Social Security cards, right? But they're paper cards without a picture on it. And we should just use those as the official card stating clearly that you are a U.S. citizen. So no longer can you use your Republican card or your Democrat card or any other silly fishing card license. No. You come in with your Social Security card. Everybody will have one, and it will have your picture on it. And you show that. And bingo. You are then known as you. You find your name in the book. You sign it. And you move on. And you vote. So new voter ID laws is not the problem. That's not a threat to voting. Everyone who is a citizen will have one. And just a reminder to all the states out there, you are a united state. You are not your own country. You have certain rights as a state, but you are U.S. citizens first. So, the U.S. government, federal government, the Constitution, and the amendments are the law of the land. And if your documents, your laws in your state contradict federal documents, then your law loses. Federal documents, federal laws are the highest laws of the land. So, requiring voter ID at election time is a must. And I'm not talking about the party cards, like I said, or fishing licenses. I'm talking about real documents, a passport, driver's license, or this Social Security card. The Social Security card will be given to all U.S. citizens free of charge. So, reduced, or actually, no, because there has to be a checks and balance on it, and we can check the Social Security with the IRS and with other things. So no, it's got to be the Social Security or a citizen card. We might call it a citizen card. Then reduce early and mail-in voting opportunities. Well, early voting is you'll get your documents. You have a month to look them over. Technically, you have 2 months to look them over. And then you have 1 month to bring it in. During the first month, you only can look them over and make your votes. But the second month, then you can still look them over and change your mind. Or you can just bring in what you voted and vote. But you have a month to vote. So no mail-in. No, we don't need a middleman getting into trouble. And for overseas voters, you go to your consular agency or you go to your commander, and that's where you place your votes. Every commander needs to know who is going to be voting overseas, and every embassy needs to know who is living in that country or in that region who is a U.S. citizen. And so when you move abroad, you have to report in and register that you're living permanently outside of the U.S. at this location. And if you move, you have to let them know again as soon as you can. Then confusing new voting regulations. Yes, voting doesn't. This is why federal needs to take control, because over the decades and decades, there's been so many of our amendments to our Constitution are because of voting. And because men, particularly white men, have at first decided that the country only belonged to them. And eventually, we've gotten through all the different issues mostly. And so everyone can vote now, officially, because it's all in there. But yet then the parties have found, the white men have found another way to abuse the system. So we need to take them completely out of the picture. And yeah, the amount of corruption through the political parties is breathtaking, and it's disturbing. And the fact that it's gone on for so long is equally outrageous. But confusing new voter regulations. No, it's very simple. There's no voter regulations whatsoever. You need to go and register that you're living in the home you're living in, that is your one main address for tax purposes. That's all. You need to show you are a citizen too, and then that needs to be recorded and at the minimum put on the website. But I would like every county to start sending out booklets. We need to know where the money is going, what is going on, any big issues that are coming up. We need to know that. So I want a booklet at least quarterly, if not every other month, telling me what's going on in my county. It's also a great way to get to know people. We can do spotlights on different people or different towns and regions. We can also get advertising in it. And so you could make money that way. You have advertisements inside. And then also people can do just different things. Clubs can put in information too about their club, whether it's a bike riding club or a sewing club or even religions. The churches can put their ads in too. So this is free of charge. It's done by the government, so it's equality. There's no religious undertone, no special anything. It's a government information booklet with details about what's going on in your county, and it's a friendship welcoming sort of concept. So, no, there won't be any new voting regulations. Then overly restrictive voter registration laws. I don't know what they mean by that, but the fact that you can't use your registered to vote card or your political party card or your fishing license, that's not overly restrictive. Sorry. Nope. So which of the following is the biggest threat to voting? Voter intimidation. So yeah, ever since I started fighting this, I've had my life risked a couple of times, and I'm followed, and people don't like what I'm saying because they're going to have to be honest for once, and they're not going to be able to just pick whoever they decide will get the job. So this is voter intimidation, absolutely. That's probably the biggest threat, because that goes hand in hand with corruption, right? So we have no checks and balances on our current voter registration list. Somebody could be registered in every state, but the states don't talk to each other. So, and trust me, I've been driving around now since 2019. Well, 2020 is when I really started driving around the U.S. And that's when I realized that, geez, I could register certainly easily in about 10 states. And then probably, maybe with a little help, the rest. So there might be people who are registered in every state. So they're voting 50 times. And then, if you do it once, then you may as well do it again, right? So then it could be even more. People could be voting in every county. It could be the job. Maybe you're being paid by the parties to vote a certain way. I mean, there's so many possibilities. It's mind-boggling. Yeah. So the next question is, do you support efforts to expand voter access laws which allow people to register to vote and cast a ballot at the polls on election day? So, again, this needs to be set up already in advance. I'm going to say you need to tell in advance that you're living where you're living. And if you moved into town, if voting is important to you to vote in that town, you need to have already told them in advance. I'm sure you didn't just decide from one day to the next to move from California to West Virginia. So, if you're still having your main address in California, that's where you get to vote. You get to vote, just not in your current location. So you have to, nope. And then we've got people coming in, too, from the territories, like Puerto Rico and Guam and American Samoa. So we got people coming in from different territories of the United States, and they, especially in presidential elections, they come in and they take up residency somewhere so they can vote for the president, because being a territory, you don't get to vote on all the issues, on all the people who are running for office, and president and vice president are one of them. So then what happens is these people come in and they take over a town or a village or a county or a state, and they sway the vote that way too. They come in for about 6 months and then they go. That's also manipulation and fraud. So we need to maybe have our territories become states. You're either a state or you're gone. It's got to be like that, because this is not working. You don't get to come in to the continental U.S. and then change votes. So, which issues are you most passionate about? Please prioritize your top 3 issues, with one being the most important. So, women's rights, women's reproductive rights, universal health care, gender justice, human rights, immigration reform, and ensuring open and equal access to voting. So those are my top things. We need to start paying mothers, and we need to bring them home so they can do the job that they need to do. It's very hard to switch between mothering and working. I'm not going to say it's not possible, but it's extremely difficult. And I don't think it's being terribly successful. So we need to bring mothers home and give them the tools and supplies and skills that they need to do their job. And that means education and providing benefits and all sorts of things. So it is time to focus on women. We've got FBI, CIA, NSA. Then we have U.S. Marshals. We have Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, and Homeland Security. Then we also have National Guard, Coast Guard, sheriff, and police, and there's a whole bunch. There's highway patrols and all sorts of things. Oh, and we have border patrol too. So we got so much for men. And what do we have for women? Nothing. Nothing. So it is time to change that. It is the part of this golden era of the USA is to include women in it. It is time to take care of the mothers. And yeah, it's time. We have an important role making and raising the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that of U.S. citizens. And we need to make them happy and healthy. Okay, so that is the end of the League of Women Voters thing. And then, of course, they ask for money. Yeah, it's pretty sad. I wouldn't fill out any of these things because they're going to know too much about you. And I don't think that's healthy. But you do you. And that's the other important thing. You do what you feel comfortable doing. But there are legal ways of voting without intimidation and without fraud and manipulation and corruption. And that's what I'm working towards. So I'm going to go over the other ones that I have, but I'm going to do them all, like I said, one at a time because they're quite involved, some of them, and they take time. So that's my news at the moment. This is the end of part 2. Part 3 is coming up, which will be another one of these canvassing forms from lobbyists, basically. Okay. Thank you. If you want to find out more about me and my lawsuits and everything, go to my website. It's susan4usa.com. That's Susan, the number 4usa.com. Okay. Thanks. Take care. Have a good day. Peace be with you. Bye for now.